Most people never realize how close they are when they give up. They look at the mountain, they take a few steps, and when the climb gets steep, when their lungs burn, when their legs shake, when the silence around them gets louder than their motivation, they stop. Not because they can't do it, but because the results aren't instant and the discomfort feels permanent. It's wild when you think about it. Most people quit when they're inches away from everything they ever wanted, but their brain convinced them it was miles. The world is built on people who gave up too soon, on abandoned businesses that were one tweak away from working, on YouTube channels that were 5 videos from a breakout, on people who went to the gym for 2 months, didn't see 6, back abs, and walked away like progress wasn't being made. They don't see the compound effect. They don't see how invisible results stack until they break into something you can't ignore. They're so addicted to speed that when something doesn't explode overnight, they think it's broken. But it's not broken, they just haven't stayed in the game long enough to see the spark. The process isn't flashy at the beginning, it's actually boring, lonely, and full of failure. No one's watching. No one cares. You post something and it gets 2 views. You build something and no one buys. You talk and nobody listens, and in that silence, most people shrink. They start thinking maybe it's not for them. Maybe they're not cut out for it. Maybe the dream's too big. But what they don't understand is that this is the process. This exact moment, when nothing is working, when no one believes in you, when you're working with 0 validation, that's when the foundation gets poured. That's the moment that separates the people who only dream from the ones who actually build. If you look at anyone who's done anything insane, anything that changed their life or the lives of millions of people, you'll notice a pattern. They didn't pop out of nowhere. They weren't an overnight success. They were the product of thousands of hours that nobody saw, the work behind the curtain, the failures that never went viral, the ideas that tanked, the launches that flopped. They didn't stop because something didn't work. They kept going until something did. And even when it finally worked, they didn't slow down, they doubled down. They learned that success isn't a moment, it's a marathon made up of sprints no one notices. Most people quit before they even have enough data to adjust. They try something once, it doesn't land, and they write it off. They upload a video, it gets 17 views, and they assume they're not good enough. They start a project, don't make money in the first 3 months, and they say it's not meant to be. But what if the video that was going to change your life was number 47, and you quit at number 13? What if your idea needed one more failure before the tweak that unlocked it? What if the thing that sets you free was just on the other side of your most painful moment and you stopped? People are addicted to comfort. And that's the enemy of greatness. Comfort tells you that effort isn't worth it unless there's applause. Comfort says don't waste your energy if it doesn't pay you back immediately. But here's the truth. The grind always pays you back, just not in the way you expect. Every failure teaches you. Every quiet day builds discipline. Every ignored project teaches you how to adjust. Every single attempt, even the worst ones, move you closer to understanding the game. And when you understand the game, you can break the game. But first, you've got to be willing to play even when it feels like no one is watching. Quitting early doesn't just rob you of success. It trains your brain to fear pressure. It builds a habit of bailing whenever things get hard. And once that habit sets in, it shows up everywhere. You start quitting friendships when conflict happens. You walk away from goals the second they demand more from you. You avoid risks. You avoid anything that smells like resistance. You play life on easy mode and then you wonder why it feels so empty. That's because you stopped growing, you stopped building, you stopped reaching. There was a time when I felt like nothing was working. I was putting in hours, staying up late, sacrificing everything, and there were days I'd pour everything I had into something, only for it to go unnoticed. I'd scroll through the comments, refresh the stats, and see nothing. But I kept showing up, not because I was guaranteed success, but because I knew if I stopped, it was over. I told myself, if I keep going, I'm still in the fight. That mentality alone changed everything. Because every day I stayed in the game, I got better, I learned, I improved, and most importantly, I became the kind of person who doesn't fold. You can't fake persistence. You can fake confidence. You can fake talent. You can fake the highlight reel. But you can't fake showing up again and again with no audience and no validation. That's real. And that's the part that builds you. When you look around and it's just you and the grind, that's when it counts. That's when your real self is forged. That's when you're not driven by praise, but by purpose. And if you can build yourself in that silence, there's nothing the world can throw at you that can break you. The crazy thing is that most people have no clue how powerful they are, because they've never pushed past the first wall. They've never seen what they're capable of on the other side of that quitting point. They've never met the version of themselves that exists after they've failed 20 times and got back up for the 21st. That version of you, that version is dangerous. That version is a fourth. But you only meet them if you keep going when every part of you wants to stop. The ones who make it, they're not smarter, they're not better looking, they're not luckier, they just didn't leave when everything screamed, this isn't working. They said, then I'll try something else. When the results were invisible, they said, I'm still moving. When the views didn't come, when the sales didn't happen, when the progress felt invisible, they still laced up, still showed up, still believed. And that belief compounded, that discipline evolved, that stubbornness became strategy, and before long, what looked like madness became momentum. Every great thing you admire was once ignored. Every icon you look up to once sat in a room, broke, frustrated, and invisible. Every empire began as a mess. Every master was once a beginner who had no idea what they were doing but didn't stop. That's the truth no one wants to tell you. It's not about being the best. It's about being the one who's still standing after everyone else has tapped out. You don't need a miracle. You don't need to be discovered. You don't need the perfect strategy. You just need to keep going, keep trying, keep showing up, even when it's embarrassing, even when it's painful, even when you have every excuse to stop, because most people will stop, and when they do, the path gets clearer, the competition thins, the window opens for the ones who never left. So when you're tired, when you're doubting yourself, when you're wondering if it's worth it, remember this: quitting guarantees nothing will change, but staying in the fight. That keeps the door open. That keeps the dream alive. That gives you a chance to become something most people never will: unstoppable. The truth is, most people don't understand how progress actually works. They expect to see fireworks after a little effort. They expect applause after their first attempt. They expect to build something epic with the energy of a weekend hobbyist. But real growth, it happens in silence. It happens in the dark. It happens while you're working like your life depends on it and no one's paying attention. You show up again and again, and it feels like the world is just staring back, completely unimpressed. That's the moment that breaks most people. But if you can survive that, if you can keep going through that dry, brutal phase, that's where everything starts to shift. The people who win in life are the ones who understand this secret. Repetition is the key, not genius, not talent, not luck. Repetition. It's putting in so many reps that failure becomes familiar. It's being so deep in the grind that quitting doesn't even cross your mind anymore, because you've already accepted that this is who you are now. You are the person who tries again. You are the one who doesn't disappear. And that identity, that mindset, becomes the sharpest weapon you've got. Because when the others drop out, and you'll still be swinging. Everyone wants the results, but very few are willing to live through the part where there are none. They want the money, the followers, the impact, the transformation, but they don't want the part where you wake up at 4 a.m. and grind alone for months with nothing to show. They don't want the part where your ideas flop and your friends stop believing in you and people think you're crazy for even trying. That's the toll, that's the tax, and you either pay it or you stay stuck in the land of potential forever. Most people never leave that place. They carry around the weight of what they could have done if they just kept going. I remember times when I gave everything I had to something and it still didn't hit. I planned, executed, edited, sacrificed, obsessed, and the response, nothing, no growth, no traction, just silence. Do you know how painful that is, to go all in and be met with nothing? But that's where I found out who I was. That's where I realized that if I only do this when it's easy, I'll never get anywhere. I had to become someone who works like it matters even when the world tells me it doesn't. And once you tap into that level of drive, you're dangerous. Because now you're not just motivated by attention, you're powered by purpose. People underestimate what consistency over time can do. 1 good effort feels nice. 10 good efforts are impressive, but 1,000. 1,000 is when you start bending reality. That's when people start asking, how did you do it? That's when they start calling it talent or luck, because they weren't there for the 980 attempts that didn't work. They didn't see the pain, the patience, the absolute obsession. They weren't there when you kept swinging after everyone else had walked away. When you don't quit, something shifts. You start seeing failure differently. It's not something to fear, it becomes information. It becomes data. Every time something doesn't work, you ask why, you tweak, you adjust, you test again, you stop taking failure personally, and you start using it like fuel. That's the edge. Most people run from failure like it's a death sentence. But if you lean into it, if you embrace it, it becomes your compass. It tells you exactly what you need to do next. It teaches you more than winning ever could. And here's what really happens when you don't give up. You grow faster than everyone else, because while they're starting and stopping, restarting from scratch, you're building momentum, you're stacking lessons. You're getting stronger in ways they can't see. It's not visible at first. It looks like nothing, but eventually you separate, you pull away, because you didn't stop every time it got uncomfortable. You kept climbing, and by the time they realize it, you're too far ahead for them to catch up. The other thing most people don't get is that mastery comes from boredom, not excitement, not novelty, boredom. Doing the same thing 1,000 times until your brain clicks into a new level. The first 100 times feel like chaos, the next 100 feel manageable, and eventually you're operating at such a high level people think it's magic. But it's not. It's just relentless repetition. It's doing the hard thing over and over until it becomes second nature. The reason most people never reach this level is because they quit as soon as it stops being fun. As soon as it gets repetitive, they start questioning everything. Is this worth it? Am I even good at this? They let the boredom trick them into thinking they're off track, but the truth is that's when they were closest. That's when they were right on the edge of a breakthrough, and instead of pushing through that last layer of resistance, they turned around. That's the real tragedy. It's not that people fail. It's that they stop before they learn how to win. They don't give themselves enough time to get good, enough time to adapt, enough time to let their mistakes teach them, and so they settle. They settle for a version of life that's smaller than what they were capable of. And they carry that disappointment with them, quietly, forever. But when you refuse to quit, something radical happens. You become the kind of person who can do anything, because you've proven to yourself that you won't run. That you won't fold, that you'll show up no matter how hard it gets. That's not just powerful, it's rare. Most people never build that kind of self-trust. They never get that deep into the process. They live on the surface, chasing hype, chasing trends, chasing fast wins. But the deep work, that's where the real stuff is built, the stuff that lasts. And yes, you'll feel like quitting 1,000 times. You'll question whether it's working. You'll doubt whether you're on the right path. You'll look at people who are farther ahead and wonder if you've wasted your time. That's normal. But what matters is what you do with those thoughts. Do you let them stop you, or do you let them push you? I've learned that the most powerful moments come right after you want to give up. When you're at your lowest, when your energy's gone, when you feel invisible, that's the moment that matters most. Because whatever you do then, in that moment, defines you. If you push through it, if you do one more rep, one more edit, one more idea, one more try, that's where everything can change. It's wild how close success is to failure. They're not opposite ends, they're neighbors. You usually have to walk through the failure door to even see success. There's no shortcut, there's no clean path, just relentless trial, error, and adjustment. That's it. That's the whole formula, and it works, but only if you don't quit. And the craziest part, one moment can shift everything. One post, one pitch, one launch, one video, one idea. After years of being ignored, suddenly everyone's paying attention. After years of grinding in silence, suddenly the spotlight hits. But that moment doesn't come unless you're there for it. And you're only there for it if you kept going when it made no sense to keep going. You kept going when there was no applause. You kept going when your own doubt screamed louder than your belief. You will be tested, not once, not twice, but constantly. Life will check your commitment. It'll throw failure in your face. It'll push you to the edge just to see what you do. And if you quit, that's the end of your story. But if you rise, if you decide to go again, if you decide to keep moving, that's where your legend begins. That's where your real life starts. So no, this path isn't easy. It's brutal. It's lonely. It's messy. But it's worth it because everything you want, every goal, every dream, every legacy, level accomplishment, it's on the other side of not quitting. And the second you realize that, quitting stops being an option. It just disappears because now you're not chasing comfort. You're chasing something bigger. You're chasing what most people will never taste the full extent of their own potential. Most people never realize how close they were. That's the heartbreak. They give up right before it starts to work. They walk away right before the breakthrough, and they never find out what they were really made of. But the ones who stay in the fight, the ones who refuse to let failure define them, they discover something most people never will. They learn that success doesn't belong to the smartest or the luckiest. It belongs to the most relentless. You don't need more talent. You don't need perfect conditions. You need a decision, a real one. A decision that says, I'm in this no matter how long it takes. Because the truth is, the second you stop giving yourself permission to quit, the game changes. You stop measuring results too early. You stop asking, is it working yet? And you start asking, how can I get better today? And that shift, that one shift, is how you build something no one can take from you. So if you're tired, good. If you've failed 100 times, perfect. If everyone doubts you, that's fuel. Because the world doesn't reward starters, it rewards finishers. The ones who stayed when it wasn't sexy. The ones who showed up when no one was clapping. The ones who refused to quit because they already saw the future and they were willing to bleed for it. You were never meant to live average. You were built for more. And the only thing standing between you and that version of yourself is whether you can keep going when every part of you wants to stop. Don't quit, not now, not ever.